Good morning, everyone. My name is Justin Butler. I'm the training chief of the Pascagoula Fire Department. Today, we're going to go over fire extinguishers. This is going to be a two-part class. We're going to sit here in the classroom and we're going to discuss a few different things. And then we're going to go outside and you're going to actually get to use a fire extinguisher and see what it's like to actually put out a real fire. So today, our objectives that we're going to learn is we're going to focus on understanding the importance of fire safety, know how to select the proper type of extinguisher, and know how to use the extinguisher. All right, so fire extinguishers are only one element to a fire survival plan. Getting out safely and getting the correct people, such as the fire department, notified of a fire are our top priority. If all of those are met and we make sure everyone else is out of the house, the fire department is called, and there's a clear exit for us to use the fire extinguisher, then at that point in time where it's safe for us to try to put out a fire, such as in the kitchen, on the stove, etc. So using extinguisher, the things that we're going to be using it for is if it's a contained fire and we don't want it to grow anymore. If the room is not filled with smoke, then it's safe to use it. But if it's a very smoky atmosphere, we need to get out now, get the fire department en route so that they can do the job to put out the fire. Because at that point in time, it's too dangerous for us because we could be sucking in all those fumes. And also, if you have to get yourself out of a fire, then of course it's safe to create an exit to get out of the fire if that's the case. So, but before you ever use a fire extinguisher, the most important thing you need to do is you need to read this label and understand exactly how that fire extinguisher operates and the fires that that extinguisher can put out. Because there's many different fire extinguishers on the market. We're going to talk about a few of the different types of fire extinguishers and the types of fire out there here in a minute. So it's very important to familiarize yourself with all of the instructions on the extinguisher and where the pressure gauge is and how to use the pressure gauge and read the pressure gauge. So when it comes to classes of fire extinguishers, most all houses you're going to find what's called a multi-purpose fire extinguisher. Multi-purpose fire extinguisher, if you look right on the bottom of the extinguisher, and I'll pass it around and let everyone see it, but it says A, B, and C type fires. That is what's called a multi-purpose fire extinguisher. So there's 5 classes of fire that we're going to discuss, but when it comes to home fire extinguishers, you're usually only going to be dealing with the top 3. So class A, what it says on the board, is for wood, clothing, paper, rubber, and plastics. Normal combustible type material. Class B fires are involved with things like gasoline, oil, solvents, and oil-based paints. Class C are involved with energized electrical devices. So keep in mind, if you turn off the power to the building, flip the breaker or what have you, now that fire is no longer a Class C, it's going to be a Class A fire. So this is a Class C is energized electrical fire. Class D are things such as combustible metals, and you'll see this a lot in the engine blocks of cars, called magnesium. And Class K fires is the newest thing that you're starting to see out a lot, and these you're going to find in more industrial style kitchens from the oils and the fats and stuff. But again, Class D and K are getting into the industrial side more than your normal household. So that's why you're in the normal household, you're going to see Class A, B, and C. So, some tips when using the fire extinguisher. You need to choose a fire extinguisher that's big, the biggest fire extinguisher you can handle safely. Because if it's too big, it's going to be too hard for you to pick up, get it off the shelf, or wherever your fire extinguisher is kept, and it's going to make it difficult to use, which is putting you at higher risk because it's taking you longer to get the extinguisher and get the fire out. So the biggest you could do, but it has to be light enough for you to pick up, okay? After we get the correct size extinguisher, you need to be able to read the pressure gauge. There is a big red circle and there's a green area of that extinguisher. You will have a needle. If that needle is within that green anywhere, then you know your fire extinguisher is at the correct pressure and safe for you to use. If it is in the red, you need to have that extinguisher properly disposed or refilled depending on your local protocols. So another important thing to keep in mind is there is some independent agencies out there that test fire extinguishers, and you will see some of them that look like a little triangle with an eye in it. This is an independent testing laboratory. It's a good idea when you're purchasing this to check the package for that label, because that means that that fire extinguisher follows all the rules and regulations set forth, and it's been tested to operate correctly. And then lastly, one big tip is we need to install these fire extinguishers on every level of the house if you have a multi-story house, close to the exits, possibly in the kitchen. But one big thing is if you keep them in the kitchen, you don't want them too close to the stove, because if a fire starts up, you want to be able to safely get to them. So kitchens, garage, or anywhere there's a potential for fire, okay? That is very important to at least have one on every floor of your house. That way you're not running upstairs to get an extinguisher or vice versa downstairs to get an extinguisher. So now let's talk about how to properly use the fire extinguisher. So in the fire service, we have something that we teach is called pass. So remember, the password is the easiest way to keep this. Most importantly, before using this extinguisher, we always need to make sure we're staying the proper distance from the fire. 6 to 8 feet is usually the number that we give out. And once we're that 6 to 8 feet, and if we can safely put out the fire, we're going to follow a 4-step process called PASS. So pass, pull the pin. Located right here, you will have a pin. I'll get it closer so you can see it. You will have a pin. Usually it has a safety device on it to keep the pin from accidentally falling out. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull the pin. Once we pull the pin, we're going to make sure that the nozzle is pointed away from us, okay? We're not ever looking down the nozzle, okay? Some of these extinguishers, depending on what kind of extinguisher you're using, can put out CO2 gas, which is very cold, and it can give you burns, okay? So we're going to point it away from us. The A is the next step. We're going to aim at the base of the fire. So over here on my PowerPoint, you see this fire. Where's the base of this fire? The base of the fire is around here. If we put the extinguishing agent way up here, it might do some help to lower the fire, but it's not going to put out the fire. The only way we're going to properly put out the fire is if we aim at the base of the fire. But we have to be careful with that. If we're putting out a grease fire with a extinguisher that's rated for that, you cannot get too close to it, because you don't want to disturb that grease and let it splatter up, because at that point in time, now you're worried about spreading the fire throughout the building, your home, or getting the hot grease on you and burning you, and we definitely don't want that, okay? So after we aim at the base of the fire, we are going to squeeze the handle. When we squeeze the handle, we're going to hold it all the way down as tight as we can, and you're going to see this agent coming out the extinguisher, and then that's when we're going to do the last S, which is sweep. We're going to sweep the nozzle back and forth. And the reason we're doing that is we want to completely surround that fire to suffocate that fire out, okay? Fire needs oxygen and it needs fuel in order to burn. So if you remove that fuel and oxygen from using that extinguisher, you will put out this fire, okay? Or make it smaller to where you can get you out of this structure to where the fire department can come in and do their job, okay? Does that make sense? You feel like you all can use an extinguisher. We're going to play with it outside, but like I said, I just wanted to give you some knowledge before we go out there to where you know the simple pass sequence, okay? So in summary of this lesson, fire extinguisher only part of a complete fire safety plan, okay? We have to make sure that we have working smoke detectors in a house. We have to make sure that we have a home escape plan. We're back to the smoke detectors. We're checking our smoke detectors monthly. We're changing the batteries every 6 months. The good thing to remember with that is whenever you change the clocks, you change the batteries no matter what in these smoke detectors. There are some smoke detectors out there now that has an internal battery that can't change out. So at that point in time, you're testing them monthly and we need to change them out periodically, okay? So back to our fire extinguisher lesson. Remember, fire extinguishers are only part of our fire safety plan. There's many other factors into that, okay? we need to make sure we select the appropriate extinguisher. And now when I say appropriate extinguisher, again, back to what we talked about earlier, we need to make sure that the fire extinguisher is not too heavy. Some of the older folks, this extinguisher is pretty heavy when it comes to picking it up. So you might not want an extinguisher that size. But bigger is better when it comes to the volume that it puts out to put out this fire. So, but if you can't lift it, you might have to go to a smaller extinguisher. That's going to be completely up to you, what you can manage safely when it comes to putting out this fire, okay? But not only the size, but also what type it is. Like I said, majority of what you're going to see out there and what I recommend for anyone that has that's getting a fire extinguisher for their house is to get a multi-purpose fire extinguisher. That's the A, B, and C logos on the fire. If you don't remember the classes of fire, right at the bottom of the extinguisher, it will tell you what kind of fires it puts out. It will have a picture and it will have a description right beside it that's going to let you know what it can put out, okay? So again, we got to properly select you got to select the appropriate size extinguisher for your use of your home, okay? And then remember, the most important rule when using an extinguisher is we got to follow the 4-step pass method. It starts with staying 6 to 8 feet away from that fire. We are going to pull the pin past that little lock that keeps the pin in there. We are going to aim at the base of the fire, squeeze the handle, and sweep back and forth. But most importantly, we're only doing this if we can safely do it. The most important thing, like I've said multiple times in this, is to get you and your family out of the house and get 911 called to where the fire department can get en route to help. Because that's our job. We have the gear and the equipment to enter these buildings at higher temperatures where you and your loved ones do not. So a safe exit is '1 rule when it comes to using a fire extinguisher and fire safety plan. So now that we're done with our lesson in the classroom, we're going to move outdoors and we're going to talk about you're going to have to demonstrate 3 different sections, okay? I'm going to get each participant to display how to choose the proper extinguisher, what the proper distance is, and I want to see each of you operate an extinguisher using the pass method and putting out our simulated fire outside. Sound good, everyone? All right. Well, I appreciate you listening to me. So if you would, let's all gather our stuff, get your little pamphlets that I gave you with all this information on it. We will meet outside and we'll start putting out some fires. Sound good? Thank you.